Now, the causes of World War I are quite complex. And if this were a regular class, I would spend a fair amount of time explaining how it all happened. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to focus my discussion of World War I on its effects on the U.S. domestically. But there's still some stuff you need to know. So, and you'll study World War I extensively next year with Mr. Richardson. But there's some stuff you need to know, so I'm going to kind of run through it real quick. And I do it as a top 10 list, the top 10 precursors to World War I. Number 10, the creation of Italy. We think of Italy as an ancient country, a unified, cohesive nation, but it was not. Prior to the Renaissance, it was as many as 200 different political entities, but by the late 19th century, it coalesced really into five. The Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, which was Sicily in the southern half of Italy, also called the Kingdom of Naples. The Piedmont Sardinia, the Kingdom of Piedmont Sardinia, which included Piedmont, the northwestern part of Italy, the richest part, industrialized by the way, and Sardinia, the island of Sardinia, which was the poorest part. The Grand Duchy of Tuscany, ruled from Florence, the Republic of Venice, the Serene Republic of Venice, and the Papal States, ruled from Rome. You, of course, know that nationalism was a huge idea in the late 19th century, and there was a desire for Italy to be unified. Which of these states would drive it? Well, it would be Piedmont, the Kingdom of Piedmont, and its King Vittorio Emanuele. But his prime minister, Camillo di Cavour, was the guy who engineered it all. And Italy linked up in 1861 and becomes a new powerful nation in Europe. Number 9, the creation of Germany. We think of Germany as a very powerful, cohesive country, but it's a fairly new entity. 1871 is when the German Empire, present-day Germany, was created. There were all these different little states, Bavaria, Hanover, Saxony. And the question was, which of the two most powerful German-speaking nations would be the driver of unification? Would it be Austria Hungary, or the Austrian Empire, or would it be Prussia? It was going to be Prussia. Prussia was ruled by King William I, Wilhelm. But again, he had a powerful chancellor named Otto von Bismarck. Bismarck was a geopolitical genius, and he joined all the states of Germany, and he, in a very complex way, he engineered a war with France called the Franco-Prussian War that brought in the remaining states. And in fact, Germany, with its industrialized military, crushed the French very quickly. It stunned everyone. France had always been the most powerful military nation in Europe. Germany beat them handily, and the newly unified Germany was bigger economically and demographically than France. The German Empire was declared at the close of the Franco-Prussian War, and it was done in the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles. That's what that's a picture of. And Kaiser Wilhelm I, King of Prussia, becomes the Emperor of Germany. Bismarck, again, was a genius. His great fear was to avoid a two-front war, having to fight Germany's great enemy, France, to the west, and the huge Russian Empire to the east. And as long as he was chancellor, he juggled things diplomatically well enough that threat was not a reality. Precursor number 8, France is increasingly isolated and scared. As part of the loss of the Franco-Prussian War, France lost Alsace-Lorraine, its northeastern province, the little yellow dot there on the map, to Germany. And it also now faces this huge new neighbor, and it felt increasingly isolated, and as a result began to cultivate a growing Franco-Russian alliance to have some friends. This was not a big deal at first, but it would become stronger and stronger. This flag is a commemoration of that growing Franco-Russian alliance. Precursor number 7, Russia is also scared by this big, powerful new German empire. But as long as Bismarck was in charge, even as Russia became friendly with France, he also drew Russia into an alliance with Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was called the Three Emperors League. Now, this will kind of wilt away after Bismarck loses power, but for a while, it's a strong alliance that helps Bismarck avoid that idea of a two-front war. Number 5, Austria Hungary. Now, the Austrian Empire was a multinational melange of several different ethnic and language groups, the most powerful of which was Hungary. And the Hungarians, the Magyars, wanted, as nationalism rises, they want a little more say. And so the emperor of Austria-Hungary, Austria at the time, Franz Joseph, conceives this idea of a dual monarchy. He will elevate the Hungarians to the equal of the Austrians and will speak Magyar as well as German in the parliament of Austria-Hungary. He becomes the king of Hungary as well as the emperor of Austria. And it pleases the Hungarians. Of course, then the Czechs say, well, what about a triple monarchy? And that was actually contemplated, because the problem with Austria-Hungary is it's all these different nationalities. Particularly problematic were the Serbs. Now, Serbia was a small nation to the south of Austria-Hungary. It had won its independence from the Ottoman Empire, but there were also lots of Serbs living in Austria-Hungary, and as nationalism surges, they want to be joined together with other Serbs. So nationalism is quite the problem for Austria-Hungary, which is a multinational empire. It was also weaker industrially, economically than some of the other powers in Europe, but it was a logical friend for Germany to have, and Germany needed friends. What more logical ally than these German language speakers? Number 5, Italy. Italy's getting nervous too. It's scared of France. France made some threatening moves to Italy, and so it links up in something called the Triple Alliance. Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. This particularly grows more important as the Three Emperors League grows less important. Number 4. Now, what about Britain, the most powerful nation on earth, as all this is going on? Well, the British had a policy they called splendid isolation. They did not want to be involved in close alliances with other powers because they thought, well, we don't need to be. We're 1/4 of the world. But as these alliances developed and nations grew more powerful in Europe and the United States grew more powerful, Britain reconsidered that and actually formed an alliance with its ancient enemy, with France. It's called the Entente Cordiale, the cordial alliance, and it grew more and more important. And it actually made a lot of logical sense. Of course, the French needed help, and they were a logical ally for Britain, and they even started after 1900 integrating the heads of their military. So it was quite a warm relationship. Number 3, the Ottoman Empire, referred to as the sick man of Europe. This map shows its height, the empire at its height, but it kept getting smaller and smaller. For example, I mentioned the Serbs gaining independence. So did the Bulgarians. The Greeks rebelled and gained independence. And although the Ottoman Empire appears to stretch along the coast of North Africa, those places were really never much more than nominal parts of the empire. And by the late 19th century, they didn't even have that part. It was pretty much not much more than present-day Turkey. And as the Ottoman Empire receded, there were a lot of people who wanted to get in on the vacuum they created. The Russians logically did. The Austrians logically did. And this involved Britain, because Britain had basically total control of the Mediterranean with various bases and its sea power. And so Britain particularly resented Russian incursion, trying to grow more powerful in a naval way through the receding of the Ottoman Empire. So this kind of put Britain and Russia particularly at odds. Number two, the first emperor, Kaiser Wilhelm II. The first Wilhelm had died, and the new second and last emperor of Germany was his son, Kaiser Wilhelm II, who was a quirky guy. He had, among other things, a love-hate relationship with Britain. He was closely related. All of these monarchs were closely related. We see here on the left Wilhelm riding with King George IV. They were cousins and close, and yet he also resented their power, and he decided he was going to build a navy bigger than Britain's, which is very menacing to Britain. And he's not going to win, because if he builds 10 ships, they'll build 10 ships and maintain their superiority. So this drives an arms race. By the way, the picture I couldn't resist showing you the picture on the right. The man in that picture, the man on the left is King George V, the King of England, and the man on the right is Tsar Nicholas II, the Emperor of Russia. They were also cousins and very close, and it's spooky how much they looked alike. And finally, number one, we have a lineup now of the Triple Alliance versus the Triple Entente. Britain had some problems with their partner France's relationship with Russia. Number one, this competition over naval power in the Mediterranean. Number two, Russia was an absolutist, non-democratic nation, and France and Britain were democracies. But as things evolved, Britain overcame those objections, and so we have a grand alliance, a triple entente of Britain, France, and Russia, faced off by the triple alliance of Germany, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Italy.